All right, take it away.
On behalf of the Free Library of Philadelphia and the Social Science and History Department, let me welcome you to this evening's program. And let me introduce you to our host from Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts, Lucy Razor.
Thank you so much, Maria. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining. My name is Lucy Resar, and I am a program coordinator with Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts. And I want to thank you all for joining us for tonight's program. And to the Free Library and Maria, of course, for having us. We really appreciate it. And so this next slide has a QR code, which will take you to a survey. And if you have the chance to fill it out, it really helps our funding. And it's you'll also be entered to win a gift card if you fill it out. For those of you who don't know, I'll also provide a quick introduction to Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts. PMC is a nonpartisan nonprofit that envisions a Pennsylvania judicial system in which everyone is assured fairness, accessibility, and respect. For over 35 years, we have been working to educate all Pennsylvanians about the courts and how to navigate them with confidence. So we aim to provide resources to make that possible for all residents. And we don't provide legal advice, but instead just offer informative and educational experiences during these workshops. And we are really, really honored to be joined today by Pamela Gwaltney. Pamela is the Deputy Director of the City of Philadelphia Commission on Human Relations, which is responsible for investigating discrimination complaints under local law and in accordance with federal law. Prior to this role, Pamela was the Assistant Chief Counsel for the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, and she also spent over 5 years working in the Defenders Association as a trial attorney. So we're incredibly grateful to Pamela for joining us and sharing the extensive knowledge you have. And we hope you all enjoy. I'll also be sending out the slides from this program to you all, and we'll also be uploading a recording to our YouTube. So if anything comes up that you'd like to return back to, you all will have access to that. And I'm going to hand it over to you, Pam, now.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lucy. Good evening, everyone. Glad that you're here and joining us for this workshop about very important information to be shared regarding expungements. So this is how we're going to cover this information. We're going to talk about expungements. We're going to talk about clean slate, and we're also going to talk about record sealing. And the goal is by the end of this presentation that you have a fairly good grasp on what these are and how they impact an individual who would like to get their record expunged or sealed. So what is an expungement? An expungement is a process to completely remove a criminal charge or conviction from a person's record. An expungement order directs the court to treat the criminal conviction as if it had never occurred. And essentially, that removes it from the defendant's criminal record. Not all charges and convictions are subject to expungement. We're going to talk about which ones are. And typically, the process occurs in the state courts. So, expungements in Pennsylvania are governed by the Crimes Code, Title 18, Section 9122, which deals specifically with expungements. Expungements are only available in certain circumstances, and let's go through those circumstances. If someone reaches 70 years of age while remaining arrest-free and prosecution-free for 10 years following a summary conviction, an expungement would be available. If a citizen has been arrest-free and prosecution-free for 5 years following a summary conviction, then an expungement could be available to them. A summary conviction constitutes most minor criminal offenses, such as disorderly conduct or harassment, that usually results in a monetary fine. So think about getting a ticket. It's similar to getting a ticket, but it's actually of the person. So if someone is charged but never convicted of a crime, meaning that crime is withdrawn, either it's no prost or not prosecuted by the district attorney, it's either dismissed or not guilty, that could be eligible for an expungement. If someone has completed a diversion program or received a pardon, that would be eligible for expungement. Why are expungements important? Expungements are important because people make mistakes and they should not have to pay for those mistakes that they make for the rest of their lives. Our criminal justice system is really based on meting out or giving out punishment commensurate, that means equal to the crime committed. However, if the stigma of that punishment stays with that person for years beyond when he or she has done their sentence, the sentence ends up being indefinite and they have to pay the price for the rest of their lives. Our system really only works if people can be given the opportunity to be rehabilitated. And that means providing them with additional chances, second chances, sometimes third or more chances, particularly when crimes are low level and a one-time mistake. Expungements help to level the playing field when it comes to opportunities for housing, employment, and education. And record clearing also paves the way for improved job opportunities and increased access to education and housing. Basically enables an individual who has been impacted by the criminal justice system to become a positive citizen and make contributions to their society and their community as a whole. These are the types of expungements. There can be a full expungement, a partial, limited access, expungement of summary charges, and automatic for ARD, which is known as accelerated rehabilitative disposition. And we'll talk about that program a little later. So what's eligible for full expungement? Full expungement is available for any charge that's disposed of as not guilty, as withdrawn, as dismissed, or not prosecuted, also known as null prost. And expungement is available for all charges but all charges in the case have to meet this requirement. So in other words, if the district attorney has arrested an individual and charged with 5 offenses, and the person was convicted for 3 out of the 5, then that's not going to work for full expungement because all charges in the case have to meet the requirement. What's eligible for a partial expungement? That applies where some charges resulted in conviction and others were dismissed, withdrawn, found guilty, or not prosecuted. So that 3 out of 5 example that I gave you, those charges would be eligible for partial expungement. So you can expunge the above charges, the charges where nothing happened on those, but the convictions are going to remain. What is the expungement of summary charges? So non-traffic citations like disorderly conduct, loitering, harassment, low-level theft. Usually, these charges result in a fine. And so in order to get them expunged, there has to have been no arrest, no charges or convictions that occurred a minimum of 5 years since that date of the summary offense. So since the conviction date of the summary offense. So I mentioned accelerated rehabilitative disposition. That's called the ARD program for short. The ARD program is for first-time nonviolent offenders. The district attorney has to agree to allow the individual, based on their charge, to be in the program. If allowed in the program and the person completes the program, it's not going to be considered a conviction. The person will not have an arrest record, and the person waives their rights to a speedy trial. The district attorney is going to postpone further prosecution of this case during the term of the ARD program. So acceptance into the ARD program is neither a conviction nor is it an acquittal of the criminal charge. Therefore, a record check through the Pennsylvania State Police is going to reveal that some of the charges are going to come up as unreported. The record is going to be automatically expunged by the court 9 to 12 months after the program is complete, if all fines and costs are paid, and after successful completion of all terms and conditions. And so what that means, if it's a drug offense and an individual is put in the drug offense and they have to go through a drug program, you have to complete the drug program successfully, show up in court to check in, to make sure that you're doing all the things that you're supposed to do over a period of time. And then after that, if the court deems that you have done everything you're supposed to do, that record can be expunged by the court within 9 to 12 months if the fines and costs are paid. So the process, where does one get started? So the first thing a person needs to do if they want to get their record expunged or look into how to do it is to get a copy of the criminal record. After the criminal record is received, examine the criminal record to check and see if some offenses have been sealed automatically under the clean slate law. And for any remaining offenses, the individual should check to see if anything should have been automatically sealed and wasn't, or if there are offenses that are eligible for expungement and or limited access. And if necessary, file a petition. So let's talk a bit more about step one, which is finding out if you have a criminal record. An individual can find out if they have a criminal record by going to this particular website, which is the UJS portal at pacourts.us. Find a tab that says case information, click on Criminal Court of Common Pleas, search by name. So you put in if you're looking for your name, or if you're a social worker or advocate that's looking for a client's name, put in the participant's name, and then the information should come up. For pictures explaining the process, there's a website for Clean Slate, which will walk you step by step through the process using pictures explaining how it looks. So the background check from the PA police, from the state police, is going to be $20. And there's the website for finding it there. There's also a helpline that can be called in order to get additional information. So requesters who want a criminal history for an expungement should contact the county court to determine if individual access and review is necessary. The individual access and review will provide the requester, that's the person that's asking, with an entire criminal history. And that includes non-conviction data, which many courts are requiring for an expungement of a criminal record. So step two, and probably one of the most important, is to make sure that all fines and costs are paid. I can't stress that enough. It's going to be very important. And to make payments for outstanding fines and costs, contact the courthouse where you were convicted. Ask the courthouse about entering into a payment plan. So for some cases, an individual might be able to pay online at fines, costs, and restitutions at the PA Court's website. And there's the information. Lucy's going to share this at the end for everyone who has showed up. So you'll have this information at your fingertips. To request a fee waiver, they are available. An individual looking for a fee waiver is going to need to contact the courthouse where the conviction occurred to find out whether or not they'd be eligible for a fee waiver. So step three, how to file a petition for an expungement. Prepare the petition, file with the Court of Common Pleas where the charge was brought. A separate petition is going to be required for each arrest. There will be fees, and that's state and county. The matter is going to be put before a judge with the local district attorney's office given the opportunity to object. So the district attorney will be there, and if there are any objections or any arguments they need to make to the court, they will make those objections and arguments. If the DA objects, the court is going to hold a hearing on the matter. If it's granted, the order is going to go to the appropriate agencies who are going to take the appropriate action dependent upon whether or not it's an order for an expungement or limited access. The whole process isn't necessarily fast. It can take up to 9 months. So here are websites for petitioning the court for expungement. And again, they'll be available as this presentation is going to be sent out to everyone who is registered. So here is what the form of petition is going to look like. It's found on the PA Court's website. It is a fillable document, so that means it doesn't have to be printed out. It means that if you have access to a computer and you can use the computer at the library, if necessary, you will be able to put that information in right from the computer, and you should be able to save that and forward it upon completion. So when you're done, you can submit that form. There's also a requirement for a form of order, which is also available on that website. It might need a cover sheet. There will be a requirement to attach the criminal records and to attach a copy of the case disposition. So for each case, what happened with that case, attach a copy of the docket, which is what the court provides, that specifically lists what happened with the case, along with the certified check or money order. So the individual filing is going to need to sign the original form, make 4 copies. 3 copies are going to be for the court, and 1 copy is for the person that's filing. Here in Philadelphia, it can be hand-delivered to the Office of Judicial Records, which is at 1301 Filbert Street, room 310. Questions regarding this can be emailed to ojrcriminalcourts@phila.gov. And there's also a phone number there that can be called if you have questions specifically about the document and signatures and such. So let's dig in a bit about what cases can be sealed. So felonies after 10 years without another felony or misdemeanor conviction can be sealed. And that includes drug crimes, theft crimes that include retail theft and receiving stolen property, trespass, forgery and theft crimes, and that includes access device fraud, bad checks, ID theft, and welfare fraud, and criminal mischief. So these felonies after 10 years without another felony or misdemeanor conviction can be sealed. Let's move to misdemeanors. So misdemeanors after 7 years without another felony or misdemeanor conviction. And that includes drug possession, theft, driving under the influence, otherwise known as DUI, simple assault, disorderly conduct, harassment, terroristic threats, recklessly endangering another person, resisting arrest, possession of an instrument of crime, and prostitution. So again, misdemeanors after 7 years that I've just listed without another felony or misdemeanor conviction. So some of you may have heard of the Clean Slate Law, which was originally passed in 2019 and updated in 2023. That is a law that in Pennsylvania expanded expungement laws to provide for automatic sealing of certain eligible offenses in certain circumstances after a particular amount of time has passed with no further convictions. So offenses that were charged but without a conviction can be sealed or expunged. Summary convictions after 5 years. Many second and third degree misdemeanors, as well as some of those upgraded offenses that are punishable by 2 years or less in prison. So convictions must be at least 10 years for felony, 7 years a misdemeanor, as we talked about in the previous slide. And the individual must be conviction-free for 10 years, as we talked about regarding felonies, and 7 years with regard to misdemeanors. All restitution has to be paid on the case. Again, I emphasize how important that is. Individuals convicted of certain felony drug offenses and sentenced to prison for 30+ months minimum and or 60+ months max, or certain violent first-degree misdemeanors are not going to be eligible. Other individuals that aren't going to be eligible are those with 4 or more second-degree misdemeanors or higher, and individuals with 2 or more M1 convictions or higher will not be eligible. Continuing our conversation about Clean Slate. Clean Slate does have limited access, so it's not available for offenses involving danger to a person, offenses against the family, offenses involving firearms and other dangerous articles, sexual offenses and sex offender registration, cruelty to animals, and corruption of the morals of minors. You're not eligible for Clean Slate limited access if you have ever been convicted of any of the following: 2 or more offenses punishable by imprisonment of more than 2 years, generally first-degree misdemeanors and more serious offenses; 4 or more offenses that each carry a maximum penalty of at least 1 year, and that is indecent exposure, sexual intercourse with an animal, failure to comply with sexual registration requirements, weapons for escape, abuse of a corpse, paramilitary training. So what's the difference between expungement versus sealing? Sealing, which is sometimes referred to in Pennsylvania as limited access, is a process where criminal records are sealed so they can't be viewed by the public. And it differs from expungement because expungement removes something from a record entirely, in that it remains on the record but can only be viewed by limited people. So let's go over that again. Sealing, sometimes referred to in Pennsylvania as limited access, is a process where criminal records are sealed so they can't be seen or viewed by the public. And it differs from expungement, which removes things, taking away something from the record entirely, in that it remains on the record, but it's only going to be reviewed by limited people. So who are those limited people? Law enforcement, state licensing agencies, but in most cases, potential employers and landlords cannot see it. Who can see a sealed record? So a sealed record can't be seen or considered by the general public. So who cannot see a sealed record? The general public cannot see a sealed record. Landlords cannot see a sealed record. Schools cannot see a sealed record. Occupational licensing boards cannot see a sealed record. Most employers that do not use FBI background checks cannot see a sealed record. And so what that means for the individual who has the sealed record is that a vast majority of employers will not see the sealed record. Who can see a sealed record? Law enforcement, for their purposes, can see a sealed record, and that includes police, prosecutors in criminal courts, gun ownership and use applications, individuals considering those can see a sealed record, and that's going to include permits to carry and Act 235. Immigration officials can see a sealed record. International Travel Agency can see a sealed record. Other court cases, sometimes in dependency court or custody court, protection from abuse matters. Those folks who are taking care of those records can sometimes see a sealed record. Admission to the bar of a particular state for an individual who wants to be a lawyer can see a sealed record. And then in limited situation where federal law is going to require a background check for employment, they will be able to see a sealed record. Now, FBI records are going to show sealed cases, but they're only going to be considered where required by federal law. So if not required by federal law, then the individual will not be able to see this sealed record. So how does one get a record seal? With Clean Slate automatic sealing, your record might be sealed through an automatic process. And that means without an individual, with you or anyone else doing anything, right? Records can also be sealed after a petition is filed and granted in court. And some convictions, like misdemeanor 2, simple assault, can be sealed only by petition. Can people access their own court documents after a record is sealed under Clean Slate? Yes. Unlike expungement, where paper court documents are physically destroyed along with individual records, sealed case files are simply unavailable to the public. Individuals may request their own court records, and that includes certified copies of their case dispositions, even after the case has been sealed. At the courthouse, they've got to go to the courthouse where they were prosecuted. And so, in other words, individuals or their advocates can still use case information from FBI or other background checks, for example, docket numbers, DC numbers, to identify and request official court records. And it's going to be important because they're going to be required for some purposes, right? So, for example, for immigration. Other similar processes. So ARD allows for a probation sentence without conviction, so an offense is not going to remain on the record. As we talked a bit about, I mentioned that ARD is available for a number of different kinds of offenses, and it's sometimes used for driving under the influence offenses for the first time. Section 17, which is similar to ARD, but is used for individuals who've been arrested for drug offenses. And it can be used for minor marijuana offenses and other drug offenses with the permission of the district attorney's office. A pardon is a similar process in that it essentially asks for forgiveness for a past offense that can be granted by the governor. And it is a very lengthy process. It can take many years to get a pardon. So as I raised earlier in the presentation, paying fines and costs and restitution is very, very important to being eligible for an expungement, for record sealing, for pardons and such. It's very important. And in all instances, not paying court costs or fines will prevent that process from moving forward. Under the Clean Slate law, sealing is only going to occur if an individual has paid all court-ordered financial obligations. So here's something that's important. For sealing, pay restitution first. If the record is eligible for sealing, then that person might want to pay restitution first before paying other fees. The case will be eligible for sealing once restitution is paid, along with a small additional fee, even if other court fees are not paid. So if an individual owes restitution and other court fees, it is possible to ask the judge on the case for permission to pay the restitution first. So here's a pretty comprehensive list of expungement resources in Pennsylvania. Again, you're going to be given this presentation because you're here this evening. So make sure that you save this information and visit some of these websites to get the important information that they have to share. Among these resources are Mind Clean Slate, Community Legal Services, the Defender Association of Philadelphia, Pulse, which is Philadelphia Lawyers for Social Equity, and the City of Philadelphia. So that completes the formal presentation. Lucy is going to pull up any questions or share any questions that might have been put in the chat, or we'll take questions. She'll provide you with directions about that. And I'll certainly do the best I can to answer questions. If I don't have an answer now, I can certainly see that you get an answer via email at a later date. Lucy?